Welcome back, Honors! Yeah, you heard me, Pat Miller. All right, now, so we are going to finish up our liberation movement in Latin America stuff. We talked about Haiti. We discussed Toussaint Louverture today. If you get bored and you want to know a little bit more about the Haitian independence movement, which I'm sure like Susie would like to know these things because she was very engaged today in class. John Green does a very, very good crash course on the Haitian independence movements. So you should definitely look into it. It's very, very cool. It goes more into depth of like how the yellow fever attacked the French military and things like that. But we got to get into a little bit about the Spanish colonies, and we're going to wrap up with South America. Okay? Now, before we even get started, one thing I want you to know going forward, revolutionary liberation movements, write this down somewhere, are going to take place in Mexico, Brazil, and Central America. We're using Haiti and South America just as examples of these Latin American independence movements. I could seriously teach an entire semester course on the liberation movements of every one of these areas. However, Latin America and France serve as the best two examples. So let's keep getting after it, though. So what I need you to do really quick is go ahead and pause me and draw this. All right, good stuff. Welcome back. Appreciate you pausing that and drawing that. So really quick, let's get into who these people are, though. So this right here is the Latin American social class structure. Now, we talked about the instability of the social class structure in Haiti and how it led to the ultimate downfall of Haitian society and also leading to a lot of dissension among the classes against one another. Same thing's going to happen here, all right? So then I'm going to show you a pasta painting here in a second, which actually explains this really, really well, too. This right here is the social class system. Let's talk about who each of these people are, but write this down next to them. So the Peninsulares are white, European-born. They're white, European-born. The biggest thing is they're from Spain, born in Spain. They are the big landholders and landowners, all right? The wealthiest class. They own most of the land in the Latin American countries, and they don't live there, okay? Then you've got the next class down, the Creoles. Landowning, white, born in Latin America, though, okay? So directly descended of Spain, Latin American born, believe themselves at this point to be more Latin American, but they also own land themselves. Not as much as your Peninsulares, though. So, really quick, Peninsulares, they are loyal back to the Spanish crown, whereas Creoles are beginning to show a lot of dissension towards the Spanish crown. Then below them, you have Mulattoes and Mestizos, which are two mixed races, right? Mestizo is the white and natives blended together. Mulattoes is white and African blended together, okay? Now, they hold a higher ranking position in the society. And then right here, you have slaves and natives at the bottom. Now, really quickly, does anybody want to guess why this is just really unsustainable? Very good job, Joey Martirano. That's exactly right. So if you've already got two classes right here that are of mixed races, that means you are making allowances for people of mixed races within this social class. But here's the question. What happens if a mulatto and a mestizo have a child together? Oh, I don't know, Mr. Terry. That's the thing. This was going to be very, very unstable, leading to the fact that as time went on, they began to have to add certain classes to like this entire system, right? They ended up having to add classes for a mestizo and a mulatto. They ended up having to add classes for a mulatto and a slave, a mulatto and a native, and it just became extremely unstable because you just couldn't allow for every single family in every different situation, right? Now, going forward, though, a lot of this is also going to be caused by none other than this guy, right, Napoleon. Napoleon is going to invade Spain in 1808. Starting his Peninsular War, right? One of his big mistakes, as we know. He's going to remove the Spanish king, Ferdinand VII, and name his brother King of Spain. Fun fact about his brother, he also forced this brother to, or not forced, but guess who this brother married? Married his stepdaughter. Stepdaughter was about 14. The brother was very old. That's super gross. All right, anyway, but it's Josephine, his wife, had a daughter from another marriage. And actually, he insisted that they marry each other to try and keep the power inside of Napoleon's family. So, gross. Now, anyway, but the Creoles, and remember we talked about in Haiti, how the classes are going to begin to resent one another, right? So the Creoles have a lot of resentment towards the Peninsulares. They are loyal to the Spanish crown. They pay homage back to the Spanish crown. They are the top political advising jobs. They hold all of the top positions. They also hold a lot of military positions as well. So the Creoles are going to use Napoleon's invasions of Spain as a reason for their revolution. They're going to begin to have rebellions that break out all over Latin America by about 1810, led by several different distinct people. One of them is, before we get there, this is an example of the invasions of the French military into Spain. So this is by Francisco Goya, and this is called the Executions of May 3rd in 1808. Now, as you can tell, these invasions were very, very hostile invasions. So what's going to end up happening is all the peril that was caused in Spain leads to a lot of these revolutions, right? The Napoleonic Wars in Spain, the Napoleonic Wars and the wars in Spain, the Peninsular Campaign, is going to lead to a large withdrawal of Spanish forces from the colonies in Latin America. So now the Peninsulares have no one there to really defend the land against the Creoles. It's because by 1820, only 10,000 Spanish military are even going to be there to try and defend them. So, as you can tell, Napoleon kind of set the stage for these liberation movements in Latin America. And also set the stage for this guy. This is Simone Bolivar. I like to say his name with a really deep, raspy voice, and it's Simone Bolivar, right? So, Simone Bolivar is a very wealthy Venezuelan Creole. He is known as the Liberator, all right? So, what you need to write down underneath his name really, really quick, or underneath the Liberator, is that Simone Bolivar is going to successfully liberate Northern South America from Spanish rule, all right? Now, let's keep going, though. So, speaking of, though, he's going to do this because he himself, being Venezuelan, is going to demand that Venezuela be declared independent in 1811, all right? So, in 1811, he amasses an army. Now, his attempts early on are very unsuccessful. However, in 1819, after 1811 and his unsuccessful attempts, he marched his army on the other side of the Andes towards Peru, okay? And then he decides that he's going to march over the Andes into today's Colombia and defeat a huge Spanish force. And by 1821, Venezuela is going to be claimed independent, and he's going to march north to Ecuador to try and meet José de San Martín, all right? So Simón Bolívar is going to successfully lead these liberation movements. Now, in northern South America, then you have José de San Martín, all right? So José de San Martín, simple, very modest guy, born in Argentina, spent some time in Spain learning how to train like a military officer, though. Also a Creole, and also has some of the most epic sideburns you've ever seen. Now, thing about José de San Martín being Argentinian, he is going to liberate southern South America from Spanish rule. So here's the neat idea. The plan was that if Simón Bolívar is up here towards Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, New Granada, as he called it when he actually successfully liberated it, and he's moving down this way, coming through Bolivia and different areas like that, José de San Martín's down here in Argentina, moving up this way through Chile. Their destination, they want to meet each other in Peru, outside of Lima, all right? So they're forcing the Spanish to fight a two-front war. Now, José de San Martín's going to do his job with the most unfortunate named person in all of Western civilization history, because Argentina is going to declare itself independent in 1816. San Martín is going to lead an army across the Andes into Chile and join up with a guy named Bernardo O'Higgins. What an unfortunate name. His father, being Irish, actually immigrated to South America in the early 1700s, I believe, and is going to marry his mother, a Creole from Argentina, and yeah, so joined up with a guy named Bernardo O'Higgins, right? They're going to free Chile from control of Spain, and then they're going to move on to Ecuador in 1822, where he's going to meet up with Bolivar, and they're going to remove the remaining Spanish forces from Lima, Peru, right? Now, together, they're going to group up, and they're going to have a council with one another, okay? And they're going to agree how things should be established in, and also, that's wrong. That's completely wrong. Don't write that. This is an old presentation. I never changed that, okay? Don't even, just all you need, don't write this slide. Don't write this slide at all. The slide's terrible, because none of that actually happened. I literally read an entire book about this summer. Now, San Martín died in like 1850, not in battle. He was in Paris, France, where he had a house there, okay? And Bolivar is victorious but this last part is very, very true. So what I need you to write is just this second part. Bolivar is victorious at ridding most of Latin America of Spanish forces and establishes his new country called Gran Colombia. All right, Gran Colombia. So, really quick, before we go any further, though, this entire area was liberated by Bolivar, and then this area was liberated by none other than San Martin. Fun fact, Bolivia, is actually named after Bolivar because he actually swept through this area and helped liberate Bolivia as well. He's one of the only people in history that actually has a country named after him. Anyway, continuing forward, Bolivar's vision for South America was a united South America. It was going to be the idea of establishing large Latin American countries as like the fatherland of these new people. Now, Gran Colombia was present-day Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Panama all mushed together into one giant country. However, this is going to be short-lived, okay? Due to the dissension among the various factions, all right? Venezuelans did not want a Colombian leader. Colombians did not want an Ecuadorian leader. And funny enough, Colombians didn't even really like Bolivar that much due to the fact that he is Venezuelan, right? So this is then going to lead to a lot of problems called caudillos taking over, where they're personal leaders and they control the military, and it leads to a lot of political instability, which we'll talk about here in about 2 seconds. Now, when it actually dissolved, Bolivar had planned on going to Europe in exile and moving back to Europe so he could actually live out the rest of his life there, but he never actually made it out alive, and he died in Peru due to tuberculosis. Poor guy. Liberates all of these areas. Now, but the really cool thing about Bolivar, though, he's still to this day, though, ironically enough, even though Colombians actually had a major part in the dissemination of the country that he helped create and the liberation movements, they actually idolize him in present day. One of their national symbols is his sword, and it's actually inside the Colombian State House. So Bolivar is going to resign in 1828, though, when his country begins to fall apart. And in 1830, Bolivar's Gran Colombia is going to be divided into Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela. Ecuador at the time, though, was called New Granada. All right? Colombia at the time was called New Granada. Now, Panama is later going to split from Colombia with U.S. assistance in 1903. So in 1903, we give a bunch of money and arms to Panama so we can build a big ditch there so we can move boats through it, called the Panama Canal. So, couple of things, though. We don't need it. Like, if we ended up talking about Mexico, we'll be here for 80 days. Now, check this out, though. The results of all these independence movements, like I said, you need to also write down that Mexico is going to liberate itself from Spanish control, also French control, funny enough. There's a whole other story about that, Maximilian I, Cinco de Mayo. Now, anyway, they're going to liberate themselves. So is Central America. Brazil's also going to liberate itself under the leadership of Dom Pedro. But we just don't really have that kind of time to talk about every single one individually. But Latin American independence movements are going to be catalyzed by Napoleon and his invasions of Europe, okay? Now, we talked about Haiti, though, and South America specifically. Now, political and social causes and results of these Latin American independence movements. Number one, there's going to be continued battle over rule between liberals, conservatives, caudillos, communists, even later on in history. A lot of different political agendas are going to come to headway, and they're going to fight over the rulership of these different areas, leading to a lot of major political instability that Latin America still deals with to this day, okay? Economically speaking, they're going to be unable to free themselves from dependence on Western-controlled economic patterns. Now, what I mean by that is this little thing called like the Monroe Doctrine. So when James Monroe came into office, he created a thing called the Monroe Doctrine, where he actually drew a line, kind of like the line of demarcation, down the middle of the earth and said, Europe, you are not allowed to do anything of economic gain on the western side of the planet. Stay over there, right? What's going to end up happening, though, this was a political move, so America could actually benefit from the economic patterns in the labor industry that was provided by Latin America. What that's going to do, though, is it's going to force Latin America into several economic patterns where they actually don't substantially gain financially for themselves, right? So they end up linked to the U.S. and kind of, unfortunately, have just turned into economically lower-end economic countries to this day. The amazing thing, though, that has happened due to these Latin American independence movements was that social system that we talked about with the Peninsulares, the Creoles, Mestizos, Mulattoes, slaves, and natives is going to be completely eradicated. And with that eradication, cultural diffusion is going to blend all of those races together. And we now have the newest and youngest race of people on the planet, Latin Americans. That's right, to my Latin American students, you are the youngest race that the world has seen. You are literally barely even 200 years old. How cool is that, right? You are the product of a major liberation movement that broke away from one of the most powerful continents, and probably the most powerful continent in the world. It's really, really amazing stuff when you think about it. So, however, this is going to be where we're going to cut it for today. Tomorrow we're going to get into nationalism in Germany. And by Monday of next week, we're going to be in World War I. All right, good stuff. I will see you guys then. Have a great evening, Honors.